Right now, 20% of the entire planet's oil supply is paralyzed because the Strait of Hormuz is completely closed. Global financial markets are reacting to the energy shock, with Brent crude prices surging past $126 a barrel. In India, the effects are physical. Supply chains are failing, leaving ordinary citizens without the cooking gas needed to feed their families. This crisis stems from Operation Epic Fury, the massive UMass and Israeli decapitation strike launched in February 2026 against the Iranian leadership. Iran retaliated with ballistic missiles against regional U.S. bases and Israeli cities, a move that functionally shut down all regional maritime traffic. This economic disaster is the result of 7 decades of unresolved friction, each conflict layer building toward this hot war transition. In 1953, Iran had a democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh, who moved to nationalize the country's oil wealth. Fearing for their oil interests, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated a coup to overthrow him, replacing Iranian democracy with a Western-backed autocrat. For the next 26 years, the Shah ruled through SAVAK, a brutal secret police force. SAVAK was the Shah's domestic security and intelligence service, known for suppressing political dissent. The 1979 Islamic Revolution was the explosive reaction to this interference. It introduced Ayatollah Khamenei, a cleric who transformed Iran into a theocracy. During the 1979 U.S. Embassy hostage crisis, Iranian students held 52 Americans captive for 444 days, creating a permanent diplomatic fracture. Both nations entered the 21st century carrying these historical wounds, ensuring that every future attempt at peace would be viewed with deep suspicion. Iran expanded its influence by building a shadow axis of resistance. This network of proxy forces let Tehran project military power across the Middle East. Western fears of a nuclear-armed theocracy grew in the early 2000s when secret underground uranium enrichment facilities were discovered at Natanz and Arak. This diagram illustrates the mechanics of the 2015 JCPOA. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is an international agreement where Iran agreed to dismantle its nuclear capacity in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. In 2018, the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the agreement. The Maximum Pressure Campaign reimposed harsh sanctions that crippled the Iranian economy and ended diplomatic progress. The October 2023 attacks triggered a regional chain reaction. Over the following 2 years, constant clashes with Iranian proxies systematically degraded the region's air defenses. Operation Epic Fury began while Iranian diplomats were in Geneva for nuclear peace negotiations. The bombing of these negotiations dismantled the final diplomatic off-ramp, leaving total war as the only remaining path. This map shows the physical choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, where 1/5 of global oil passes through a narrow maritime artery. India is highly vulnerable, relying on this single route for the vast majority of its crude oil and liquefied petroleum gas. The domestic fallout is immediate. The Indian government invoked emergency rationing, creating a 4-tier gas priority system that leaves many families unable to cook. Under heavy missile fire, 8 to 9 million Indian migrant workers are fleeing the Gulf states, cutting off billions in remittances that support their families back home. A secondary global shockwave is hitting the food supply. Because natural gas is a primary input for fertilizer, the shutdown of Qatari exports is causing prices to surge worldwide. In a hyper-connected global economy, a localized military strike acts as a worldwide tax on the most basic requirements for human survival. Both states have their grievances. Washington fears a hostile nuclear power, while Tehran views Western actions as a continuation of decades of imperialism. However, the leadership on both sides chose escalation, bombing active negotiations on one side and prioritizing proxy violence over domestic stability on the other. The physical bill for these decisions is not paid by the politicians. It is paid by civilians, like the schoolgirls killed in the Minab airstrikes. Millions of ordinary families worldwide are paying for this war through crippling inflation, unlit stoves, and cold homes. While leaders frame their wars as noble and necessary, the devastating cost is always borne by those who had no vote in starting them.